Experts at odds over result of UN climate talks in Dubai. Historic. Pipsqueak or something else. Why Argentina's shock measures may be the best hope for its ailing economy. Israeli Defense Minister says war on Hamas will last months as U.S. envoy discusses timetable. Today is Friday, December 15th, 2023, and this is the Dunkley Report. The climate negotiations that just finished in Dubai hit upon the essence of compromise, finding common language that everyone accepted, at times grudgingly. But for an agreement so steeped in compromise, what experts thought of it was as polarizing as can be. More than half of the 23 experts asked by the Associated Press say it was one of the most significant climate talks ever. Yet, a smaller but still large chunk dismiss it as awful. Even some of those praising it as most impressive also noted gaping problems they felt they had to highlight. The painful economic steps that Argentina's new president, Javier Milei, announced this week sound draconian, slashing the currency's value in half, reducing aid to provincial governments, suspending public works, cutting subsidies for gas and electricity, raising some taxes. Yet the South American country's economy is such a basket case, and has been for so long, that many analysts believe that only such radical measures offer a realistic opportunity to rescue the economy. The critical question, economists say, is this: will the Argentinian people, who gave Milei, a libertarian economist, nearly 56% of the vote in a runoff election last month, continue to back his plan once real economic pain inevitably sets in? Israel's defense minister says it will take months to destroy Hamas, predicting a drawn-out war. Yoav Gallant spoke Thursday in an interview with the Associated Press. His comments emerged as his country and its top ally, the United States, face increasing international isolation and alarm over the devastation from Israel's campaign in Gaza. Gallant's remarks underscored a dynamic that has held between the two allies for weeks. The Biden administration has shown unease over Israel's failure to reduce civilian casualties. But the administration continues to offer support for Israel's campaign with weapons and diplomatic backing. A deadly Hamas ambush on Israeli troops in Gaza City this week showed the group's resilience. Emboldened by battlefield gains and flagging Western support for Ukraine, a relaxed and confident President Vladimir Putin says there will be no peace until Moscow achieves its goals, which he says are unchanged after nearly 2 years of fighting. He spoke Thursday at a year-end news conference that gave him an opportunity to reinforce his authority as he runs for re-election in March after nearly 24 years in power. Giving rare detail on what Moscow calls its special military operation, Putin dismissed the need for a second wave of mobilization of reservists that proved deeply unpopular before. He said there are some 617,000 Russian soldiers currently in Ukraine, including around 244,000 troops called up to fight alongside professional forces. Pope Francis is calling for an international treaty to ensure artificial intelligence is developed and used ethically. He says a treaty is needed because the risks of technology lacking human values of compassion, mercy, and forgiveness are too great. Francis added his voice to increasing calls for binding global regulation of AI in his annual message for the World Day of Peace, which the Catholic Church celebrates each January 1st. The Vatican released the text of the message on Thursday. It was released just days after European Union negotiators secured provisional approval on the world's first comprehensive AI rules that are expected to serve as a gold standard for governments considering their own regulation. Israeli troops mistakenly shot 3 hostages to death in a battle-torn neighborhood of Gaza City, and an Israeli strike killed a Palestinian journalist in the south of the besieged territory. The deaths announced Friday underscored the ferocity of Israel's ongoing onslaught. The hostages were killed in the Gaza City area of Shijaya, where troops have been engaged in fierce fighting with Hamas militants in recent days. The Army's chief spokesman, Rear Adm. Daniel Hagari, said soldiers mistakenly identified the 3 Israelis as a threat and opened fire on them. He said it was believed that the 3 had either fled their captors or been abandoned. Donald Trump is pushing his supporters to deliver a blowout win in next month's Iowa caucuses. A myriad of well-qualified GOP challengers has struggled to gain traction despite crisscrossing the state over the last year. Rival campaigns have spent more than $70 million in Iowa on advertising, and unlike his first time in the caucuses, Trump's campaign is now run by Iowa veterans who are not just locking in caucus commitments, but building a formidable organization to try to lock in his lead. His dominance reflects what one strategist called his quasi-incumbent status and his continued support in the GOP base. British and French authorities have confirmed that a teenager found wandering on a road in the rain at night in southwestern France is Alex Batty, who disappeared 6 years ago. Batty was 11 when his mother and grandfather took him on what was meant to be a 2-week family holiday in Spain. Instead, it turned out to be a 6-year odyssey through Morocco, Spain, and southwest France, living an off-the-grid life. This week, now aged 17, he decided to go his own way. A French prosecutor said on Friday that the mother may have gone on to Finland without him, and that his grandfather appears to have died. Prince Harry's victory against Mirror Group newspapers is a landmark moment in the long saga of law-breaking by Britain's tabloids. Judge Timothy Fancourt ruled on Friday that Mirror newspapers had hired private investigators to snoop for personal information and engaged in phone hacking for over a decade. It's the latest chapter in a tale of tabloid power and attempts to tame it stretching back years. But it's unlikely to be the end of the story. The ruling will strengthen the hand of others lining up to sue the company over alleged hacking. It also puts pressure on former executives, including ex-Daily Mirror editor Piers Morgan. And Harry has 2 more suits against tabloid publishers in the works. The United States has experienced a 12% increase in homelessness to its highest reported level. Federal officials Friday said soaring rents and a winding down of coronavirus pandemic assistance combined to put housing out of reach for more Americans. Numbers in the January count were up across the board, compared with January 2022. About 653,000 people were homeless, the most since the country began using the yearly point-in-time survey in 2007. Homelessness among individuals rose 11%, among veterans 7%, and among families with children 15.5%. Housing and Urban Development Secretary Marcia Fudge says the data shows an urgent need for support of proven ways to prevent homelessness. Today's news was reported by the Associated Press. This has been the international news for Friday, December 15th, 2023. Thanks again for joining us here at the Dunkley Report.